nuts, any sort of seed. If you like chia seed, flaxseed, walnuts, those are all fantastic sources of omega-3s that's plant-based. So you absolutely don't have to go with any sort of fish to get that amount of omega-3s that's recommended daily.
If a person doesn't get enough protein, does that make them more sleepy, tired all the time?
It could. It absolutely could. A lot of protein's role in the body is also immune function. So a lot of times with lack of protein or not enough protein, you would feel it in your immune system, how easy or difficult it is for you to get sick or to fight off, let's say, a common cold, your ability to fall asleep super quickly, or your ability to maintain energy throughout the rest of the day. So protein does play a huge role in that as well. So if you don't have enough of it, if people are running more off of carbohydrates and sugars and rices and grains, typically you get more tired from those foods. And it has everything to do with the way your body processes carbohydrates. And without sounding super scientific, but the effect of carbohydrates on your blood sugar. And that's really what leads more to you being sleepy than anything else.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So are you saying then that you probably can get enough protein if you eat beans and nuts and seeds, if you eat enough during the day?
You can, you definitely can. It, like I said, it just takes more planning. Like my vegan or vegetarian clients, it does require more thought process because you're not just going to make 2 scrambled eggs in the morning if you're vegan. So it does take a little bit more prep work to get that amount of protein in, but it's absolutely doable. I have even my own family members. I have vegans and vegetarians in my family, and their health is absolutely fine. It just requires that, okay, well, breakfast, what is it going to be? What combinations of things can I put together to make sure I have enough protein?
And how many grams a day of protein should we shoot for?
So that's going to be based off your couple different things: height, weight, gender, medical issues. So if there's any sort of kidney issue, that's going to change your protein amount for the day. If there's any sort of heart issue, that changes it. So all medical history, medication, that changes it. But the minimum to prevent deficiency, let's put it that way, is, bear with me, 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So in English, if you take your weight, divide it by 2.2, that is your weight in kilograms. Now you take that weight and you multiply it by 0.8, and that's how many grams of protein you need.
Okay.
Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And if you want to tell me how much you weigh, I can do that math for you in 20 seconds. But if you want to do it on your own, that's fine too.
136 pounds.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Give it to me one more time.
136 pounds.
So that's 45 to 50 grams of protein per day. However, that is to prevent deficiency and to prevent illness. That's not for optimal health. So I take that number very loosely because it's basically just to prevent a deficiency, but it's not to keep your body as healthy as possible. To keep your body, what I would say, as healthy as possible, that's a different number. So if we're 136, that's going to be more like 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, which is almost double the amount to prevent deficiency. So now you're looking at around 90 grams of protein per day for health.
Wow.
So the big difference. And that's why there's so many different equations and numbers that they've come up with over the years. And there's just the one extreme of, yeah, if we don't want you to be sick, this is how much you should eat. And then the other where if you want to not be sick, but you want to be healthy, it's like a 40-gram difference. And that's just depending on your weight. If you have somebody who's 200 pounds, yeah, that difference now is going to be way more drastic than somebody who's 100 pounds. So it's a big gap.
I had also read about an association between dairy and Parkinson's. Is dairy something to avoid?
I read that too. One of the webinars and the seminars that I just listened to, kind of went into that as a myth versus the truth. And really what they ended up finding was it's not so much the dairy or the protein in dairy that's linked to Parkinson's or in charge of the progression of it. It's more, what is that dairy product consisting of? So on a scale of, let's say, skim milk to whole milk, you're going to get either zero fat or you're going to get pretty much whole milk, which is, you know, mostly milk fat. That milk fat is saturated fat, which is also the fat that's found if you look at a piece of steak, that white marbling, that's the same fat that's found in whole milk or whole fat dairy products. That fat is very inflammatory, and that is the fat that contributes more to physical decline, cognitive decline, and not just Parkinson's, but dementia and Alzheimer's and any sort of cognitive issue. That fat is very, very inflammatory. So that is the fat where, yeah, it's not dairy itself, but if you go with 1% milk instead of whole, if you go with reduced fat cheese instead of whole fat cheese, or yogurts, cottage cheeses, as long as you go with a reduced fat version of it, it's not like the dairy itself is going to speed anything up or cause it. It's just the fat that is very, very inflammatory. So yeah, I don't, one of the other things too, in that same article, it talked about berries and fruit and the benefits of having enough fruit, enough berries, as far as the antioxidants are going to help to prevent the increased response of cognitive decline, physical decline. So while milk and those high fat dairy products may speed it up because of the inflammatory aspects of that fat, trying to put in more of nuts, seeds, a lot of plant-based foods are incredibly beneficial. And the berries, which provide so many antioxidants, helps to offset that. It almost helps to do the total opposite. Same thing with sugar. They've also found sugar to be very, very inflammatory. So if you're somebody who likes their sweets and cakes and cookies, and that's one of those inflammatory foods as well, where yes, that is also going to increase the ability for the body to really speed up that cognitive decline as well. So sugar and then that saturated fat on a food label are the two things that I really look out for and encourage my clients to really avoid as much as possible.
How does ice cream fit into it?
Oh, delicious. My favorite food. Ice cream's a doozy. It's full fat and loaded with added sugar. And I'm very away from that diet mindset. I never tell my clients we're going on a diet or I ever encourage them to follow a diet plan. I think that's very restrictive, but having ice cream once a week, know that it's not going to ruin any sort of progress or that's not going to cause any sort of internal issues. Every day, different situation. Once a week, you go to Sundays and enjoy it.
You made my day.
I'm glad I made someone's.
I don't think you made Jim's day. Trying to maintain weight too, like, and not lose so much weight. And so, you know, the ice cream at night seemed like a good way to do, with a banana.
I find that to be one of the biggest things I see with Parkinson's is people will come to me and say, okay, well, I'm losing weight, but I can't have sugar. I can't have full fat dairy. So what do I do to get the calories in? There are healthy fat sources. So going with, when you're cooking, using olive oil in your cooking, or instead of using, let's say, butter on top of, let's say, rice, you know, start to cook it in olive oil or drizzle a tablespoon of olive oil on top of a piece of chicken as a condiment, or on top of veggies. A tablespoon of oil gives you 120 calories, but it's the healthy fat. It's not that inflammatory saturated fat. Avocados, same thing, high fat, but it's the healthy fat. Whole eggs are fantastic sources of protein, sources of healthy fat and calories. Dairy is also great, like I said, as long as we don't go with the whole fat version of it. So if you do 1%, 2% milk, yogurts, cottage cheeses. Even at night, if you switched more to, let's say, a frozen yogurt as opposed to ice cream, that fat is cut in half. It's still calories, but it's not as much as that inflammatory fat would be. So adding other sources of fat in is awesome. Peanut butter, if you like peanut butter, almond butter, nuts, seeds, they're all high fat, high protein, high calorie, but it's not like eating a piece of steak. It's the healthier fat.
I've lost 6 pounds, so I'm wondering, and my wife sometimes gets Boost for me. Is that good or is that not good?
That's fine. That's fine. I think the Boost should be geared towards, well, so it depends because there's a couple different kinds. Do you know which one she gets?
The one where you maintain or gain weight?
I always look that up too. Boost. Is it the diabetic formula or no?
No.
So it's not the glucose control. Is it in the green bottle?
No.
So it depends. A lot of the ones like these supplements that are either like Boost or Ensure or Glucerna is geared towards diabetics, but a lot of them, their weight gaining properties come from the amount of added sugar that's put in these bottles. It's like them melting a candy bar and putting it into a bottle of Ensure, a bottle of Boost. So yes, you're still getting that inflammatory sugar in these drinks because of the amount of added sugar they're putting in that are geared toward weight gain. So I do tell people if you could start either A, making your protein shakes on your own and getting a protein powder and throwing into the blender like frozen fruit, peanut butter. If you want to throw in a scoop of dairy yogurt or dairy-free yogurt, that would be an option. Trying to just make like a thick smoothie for yourself that's really low in added sugar and saturated fat and relying less on the pre-made bottles.
My wife sometimes makes up a mix of trail mix of different kinds of nuts and raisins or cranberries. Is that good for weight gaining?
Yes. Yes. So typically a quarter cup of nuts is going to be around 200 calories. And it's very easy to have a quarter cup of almonds, cashews, walnuts, whatever nut you're a fan of. They add up very, very quickly. So I find that to be a really great snack to go with. And if she wants to make it with a different fruit, absolutely, that works too. Raisins and cranberries are typically dried with added sugar. If you go though with, let's say, apricots or those dried banana pieces or any sort of dried fruit, most of them, you could find most of them with no added sugar through the drying process. So if you like different dried fruits, absolutely throw them in there with some sort of nut and seed combination. And that would be several hundred calories in a handful, which would be great for weight gain.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What other questions do you guys have?
What's in fish that makes it good for parkies?
For puppies?
Parkies.
I'm like, I don't know. I didn't go to vet school. I'm really not sure. Fish. So fish is going to have the omega-3. Omega-3 is fantastic for brain health. So a lot of time with the omega-3, that's also protective against omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. So they're right off the bat, we're reducing the inflammation that's internally head to toe in our bodies. It's great for brain health. So omega-3s have been shown to slow cognitive decline. Omega-3 is also great for your health and your heart and your eyesight. So all in all, between all those properties, it's great for anybody, but especially given that there's so much, and depending on where you are in your diagnosis, some people deal with a very high amount of inflammation going on, and that's joints and muscles and, head to toe. Some people don't deal with as much, but having a powerful anti-inflammatory that's not an aspirin, over-the-counter medication, something that's more naturally found in your foods, that's what I try to promote. I try to get away from more medication. I know you guys are probably on so many of them to begin with, so I don't like to add more to it. If we can naturally get these anti-inflammatory properties through food, that's my main goal, just through what you're eating. So fish is fantastic from the omega-3 aspect. It's high in the healthy fats. It's not the inflammatory saturated fats, and it's high in protein. So it's a great food to have. Do most people like it? No, I don't find that a lot of people get the recommended 2 servings a week in, especially when it's not the summer. Most people like to have the fresh, and that's more summer. In the winter, when we rely on frozen, I find most of my clients' fish consumption really just goes out the window. But it's a great food if you do enjoy it, and it could be part of your weekly lunches or dinners. But of course, if you don't, relying more on the plant-based sources are still going to give you that omega-3 benefit, the protein benefit, with it just being in a plant form instead.
Which fish gives the most omega-3?
Not the most delicious ones. So there's salmon, but then salmon and tuna are great. Mackerel, herring, which some people like that, some people don't. Sardines, a lot of canned fish. So it's not easy fish-wise, unless you are a fish lover, to get your omega-3s through fish, unless you're having salmon twice a week, or tuna one day, salmon another day. It's a lot of the fishy fish, the canned fish. So it's, from a fish perspective, it's challenging. It's not all of them. It's not like tilapia and the white fish, the flaky fish. So it's salmon, though, I think is the safest option of what I recommend for people. And it's the easiest, I think, to find on a menu around here, at least.
So is the farm raised salmon okay?
I'm sorry?
If the farm raised versus the wild caught salmon is you're okay with?
I am. It depends who you talk to, but I'm okay with it. I think everyone's preference is very different. It's kind of like going with grass-fed versus wild beef, and do you want organic, non-organic? I think it's just a personal preference. I don't find, like, if you look at the back of both of them, there's really no nutritional difference between wild and farm. So nutritionally, they're the same. It's just, I think, what are you more comfortable consuming, knowing that's how the fish was treated, that's how the cow was treated, and what they ate, etc. But nutritionally, it's the same.
Hi, John.
Hi, Emily. This is Tom Glover.
Hi.
Hey, can you suggest either a YouTube video or a book, a basic book that would suggest a standard basic diet? Like, is there something, video form or book form that would be helpful?
Tom, I'm sorry. I can't hear you.
Yeah. Is there a YouTube video or a book that would help suggest a standard basic diet, for example, lunch or dinner?
To suggest a diet that's, and then I lose you.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. Can you hear me any better now?
A little bit. Can you type it? Is that easier for you?
Let me give it a shot.
Okay.
Here.
Yeah. Is there a book or a YouTube thing?
On diet, probably for Parkinson's.
Video book for standard diet. Just like in general, just like a healthy diet?
In general, for Parkinson's patients.
So I have not come across one that I fully agree with. Let's put it that way. I think what's so challenging with Parkinson's is that everyone's medication regimen is entirely different. Everyone's lifestyle, physical activity level, overall health is so different that it's not just, here's a cookie cutter routine, let's follow it. So I haven't come across one necessarily that I love. Let me see if I can find, and I could put it in the chat, the webinar that I listened to on Parkinson's. It was a couple of years ago, but I loved it. Let me see if I can find it. Give me 1 second. So it's called Berries, Bioactive Nutrients and Brain Health. Let me see if I can get it on YouTube. It was part of actually, so as a dietitian, you have to take continuing education credits. And we have to do 75 of them in 5 years. So each hour-long webinar is a credit. And this was one of them that I did. And it was on Parkinson's and it was fantastic.
Do you remember what date it was published?
I got it. Here we go. I'm going to copy and paste it. I just put it in the chat, so you should be able to click on that and open that webinar. It's an hour long. Of course, it's a little sciencey. It goes into the science of what these nutrients do in the body. But it makes it really simple. It offers practical solutions and how you can implement it into your diet with different food groups, how many food groups you should have a day of these particular nutrients based on what the studies find. So that's a super interesting video to watch. Thoughts on nutrition following exercise, like 2 to 4 hours of golf. Do you like to golf?
No.
Is that, Tom, you put this question in?
Yes.
So of course the big thing is eating after exercise. Before and after exercise is a must. Especially if you go golfing now in this heat. Water intake, and I know that's one of the biggest things on top
This
of
really needs that. That's a drug for urinary, and
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So dehydration, one of the biggest things. So especially if you're golfing now, making sure you're eating before and after, making sure that you're having enough water is going to be the best option. So depending on what you eat and depending on when you're taking your medication, doing a combination of protein and carbohydrates post any sort of workout is going to be your best option. So if you like a turkey sandwich, if you wanted to do eggs and toast or rice and some sort of protein, if you're a vegetarian, rice and beans. If you wanted to do rice and grilled chicken, potatoes and steak, doing pasta and shrimp, one of the above. But doing that combination of carbohydrates and protein together, it's going to help refuel all the calories and all the carbohydrates that your body lost during exercise, because that's our body's first source of energy during physical activity is carbohydrates. So being able to replete that after your exercise, and then the protein is going to help maintain your muscle tissue and your muscle mass as much as possible. So that's absolutely what I would have, especially with golfing and you're gone for multiple hours of the day. I would definitely come home and have some sort of well-balanced meal with those two things. and enough water to rehydrate you if you don't have water on the course with you. Anyone else?
Where do you go for recipes that are easy to make and don't require much in the way of cooking skills?
My husband. No, I actually have a huge, John, if I send it to you, is there a way for you to get it out to these guys? I have a big like 5-page Word document of links of recipes that I like to use, and they're super simple, minimal ingredients, and they're breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, healthier desserts. If I email that to you, can you send it out to them?
Yeah.
Perfect. So I'll get those recipes over to you by the end of today. And then that's normally what I refer to. Those are my recipes. There's probably around 100 recipes in this Word document. Cooking Light, I find to be a great website that I use a lot. So if you want to kind of peruse Cooking Light, that's one I like. Weight Watchers, I don't love the program, but they have some awesome recipes. So that's another website that I would go on. Prevention, that's another magazine. So, and honestly, I'm very, very basic when it comes to meals. I'll end up Googling if I'm out of ideas, healthy, easy meals in under 30 minutes. And it'll pretty much bring you, Food Network has a great website. It'll bring you a bunch of meals that you can cook in under 30 minutes on the Food Network's website as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me make a note to email John when I'm done here. Or even if, Fred, if you wanted to put your email in the chat, I could send it to you directly. So that's fine.
I trust John.
He's a good guy. We'll trust him.
The best. For vegetarians, do you ever try Morningstar products?
I love them. Yeah, they're in my freezer all the time. Normally that's what I would go with for like their beef crumble, let's call it. I know it's not beef, but I use that and I put that over chickpea pasta. I use their chicken strips and recipes. I love their breakfast. Like maple sausages. They know they changed the name a couple times, but their breakfast sausages I love. So that's a brand I definitely utilize. I love the Field Roast brand of sausages. That's in the refrigerator section with the blocks of tofu and tempeh. That's something that I use. I dice that up, throw that in a salad or throw that in a stir fry, make peppers and onions with it. I do that a lot, put it on a sandwich. How do you feel about actually cooking with blocks of tofu? Do you like it?
We do it quite a lot, but I'm still looking for, I think I've lost my sense of taste somewhat, but hoisin sauce seems to help a little bit, and lots of soy sauce. Yeah. But beyond that, I'm at a loss as to how to flavor tofu.
It's super plain. So as you know, I try to cook it the same way I would in any other recipe. So if you find a recipe that they're using chicken, I use tofu as the equivalent of that. So like if you're making, I know now it's 90 degrees outside, supposedly today, you're not going to make soup, but if you're going to make a soup instead of chicken noodle soup, I'll dice up my tofu and I'll throw it in there. And with the noodles, the veggies, the broth, etc. But I throw that in there in place of the chicken. If you're going to do you do cheese, correct?
Yes.
If you're going to do a chicken parm. I've made tofu parm. And I know that sounds weird, but you make it the same way. I'll bread it. I put it in the air fryer. Or I'll put it on the stovetop with a little bit of sauce and cheese. And now it's just chicken parm, but vegetarian. So any recipe that you find that would utilize chicken, I think flavor profile, it's very, very similar. They're both very basic. I don't think they're overly flavorful. So it really could take on the flavor of what the rest of the recipe has. Gardine's another one. I don't know if you had any Gardein products also, but that's another pretty delicious frozen brands. And that's of course already seasoned. It just depends if that's something that you like the taste of, or if you think that's also just as bland as, plain tofu.
In your experience in working with Parkinson folks, have others also lost their sense of taste somewhat?
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, not even Parkinson's related. As we just age, our taste buds, we lose taste buds and our taste receptors. So it's not even necessarily part of the progression of the disease. It's as we get older, that's just a very normal side effect. People have to taste very, very strong flavors. So something has to be super salty, super sweet. It can't just kind of be in the middle because everything pretty much tastes the same. So it has to have some sort of really strong flavor in there. A lot of people will use hot sauces or barbecue sauces, something that's just incredibly flavorful and overpowering to somebody who's maybe younger or who doesn't have as much of a loss of taste, but to you, it would be perfectly flavored, and that's okay. So I find that just finding that strong flavor of whatever it may be, if it's bitter or salty or sweet, whatever you could enjoy the taste of and that you recognize, use that as to flavor your food, especially with weight loss. I find that, the minute you start to not be able to taste your food, then I find a lot of clients say, well, the enjoyment of eating is also kind of gone out the window too. And now weight loss starts to occur. So enjoying your meals, being able to taste your meals is so crucial for weight maintenance or weight gain.
Does the butter in pastry cause kind of a problem?
Depends how much they use. What pastry are you talking about?
Oh, like Danish.
Delicious. It's never going to be a health food. So you're always going to run into the issue of, they're going to use butter or shortening in these recipes, which is very high in fat. You're going to run into the issue with there's a lot of added sugar in any sort of pastry or dessert. So yes, we have those two things kind of working against you, let's say. But from a weight gain perspective, you're going to have several hundred calories in a small pastry. So I try to just I tell people limit it to 1 serving a day. But the rest of your day, I wouldn't have like a piece of filet mignon for dinner, which has a tremendous amount of saturated fat, and then a pastry for dessert, because now we have way too much inflammatory fat in that one day. So try to just balance it as best you can. Yeah, Tom, I think that's fine. I don't, and I don't know if you missed the conversation before about dairy and kind of the scale of that between like skim milk and whole milk. Steak's the same thing. If you have a ribeye, or if you have something that's a T-bone, which is just incredibly fatty, I mean, you could see that marbling, that thick marbling throughout. That's going to be much more inflammatory and much higher in saturated fat than going with a leaner cut, where like a fillet or a skirt steak, where there's not as much marbling throughout, or it's on the exterior where you can cut the chunks out before you cook it. So there's definitely beneficial properties to red meat. I normally, rule of thumb, will tell people no more than twice a week, regardless of how fatty it is, because there is still overall red meat's more inflammatory than chicken or turkey would be, I do tell people to try to do it just twice a week.
Do you work pretty closely with Dr. Marcos?
I don't. There's actually not a lot of doctors that I do work closely with. A lot of my referrals come from, well, they come from Matt. But a lot of my referrals come from more endocrinologists and hormone doctors than neurologists. Is that a neurologist that you're talking about?
Motion specialist and neurologist.
Okay. Yeah, I really don't. Normally what would happen in our line of command here, they would refer a patient to Matt. And then Matt would, if there was any sort of nutritional issue, Matt would come to my office and say, hey, listen, we got to kind of catch up with this person or this one, just to kind of make sure that they're doing okay. After that intake, that initial intake's done, he's the one that would pretty much determine, yes, someone's not eating, someone's losing weight, someone's deficient in this. And then we kind of go from there. But I really don't get a lot of referrals from neurologists, which I wish I did get more thinking about it, because I realize how much nutrition plays a part in just, of course, overall health. But also, especially with Parkinson's, most people deal with either weight gain, depending on their medications, or drastic weight loss. And I think so many times the neurologist doesn't immediately refer to a dietitian. They try to find other avenues around it, but it doesn't solve that issue. So I wish I did.
Would you happen to know if blood testing for omega-3 is an expensive test or a long test?
I know it's not long. It's just like going to get, your glucose tested. I don't know, because I know it's obviously not included in a standard panel of blood work. So I don't know how much extra it would be. I think they actually, in that webinar that I sent, I'm almost positive that's the webinar, they talk about omega-3 testing. It may not be. If you actually wanted to go on it, it's Great Valley Publishing. If you look them up on YouTube, that's actually one of the main companies that does our nutrition webinars and seminars. They've done a whole presentation on omega-3s in the body. That actually may be the webinar where they talk about testing for it. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's something insurance would cover, if that's something expensive out of pocket, but I know it's the same concept as just drawing a regular panel of blood.
Thank you.
What about B12 for those of us who don't eat much meat or any meat? Is that something that should be checked regularly, or like in the regular multivitamin or cereal box? Sometimes it'll list B12, but I'm not sure if that's enough for us. So
B12 levels, yes. Vegetarian and vegans normally have low B12 levels. And it depends. That's included for the most part in a standard panel of blood work. So that's normally checked once a year. And of course, not everyone gets blood drawn on an annual basis, but that is something that's normally drawn. B12 is tricky. B12 is depending on how restrictive of a diet you're on. Not everyone's going to consume enough B12 naturally if you eliminate meat sources, just because that's typically the highest concentration of B12. And then most people have to rely on either B12 pills, B12 injections that'll be given by a doctor, depending on how deficient you are. B12 is definitely a tricky one. Are you guys vegetarian, vegan?
Well, we are eating fish. So do we get enough if we eat, say, 2 or 3 servings of fish a week?
What kind of fish?
Cod, halibut, the white ones.
Okay.
Rockfish. Yeah, we were ordering a frozen wild caught box of fish from Alaska, right?
Okay.
So
What about,
that
so yes, fish is absolutely going to have B12 in it. What about dairy?
well, you've been eating a lot of ice cream,
Ice cream.
but I avoid dairy, but maybe I shouldn't. So we would get the B12 if we did the low fat dairy.
Yes. Yes. So fish, do you guys do eggs?
Occasionally.
Not too much.
So yeah, fish, eggs, milk, dairy products. Some breakfast cereals could be fortified with it. Certain food products are fortified with B12, but you know, it's not incredibly common. So it's going to be more naturally found in the animal, the fish, the dairy. So really your protein foods, some plant foods, if you see a plant food that has B12 in it, it's fortified. So it's not naturally found. So really it's going to be more naturally found in the animal sources. But like if you take a multi, B12 is normally in your multi. So you
Right.
may be absolutely fine, even if you only consume eggs once a week. If you consume fish twice a week, that on top of your multivitamin, you may have no problem whatsoever.
Okay, so it could be in the multivitamin. I know some advocate the like the liquid or extra B12 only. So
It depends on your deficiency. It depends how severe you are. Like I have some clients who take a multi and also get B12 injections once a week or once every other week by their doctor because their levels are just so low. So, you know, it really just depends what your daily intake looks like and what where you're fluctuating on that scale of B12 in the body.
Right. Thank you.
Draft beer.
It's a problem.
Alcohol in general is inflammatory, period. Do I think, once again, like ice cream and a steak and a pastry, you should totally eliminate it? No, absolutely not. The tricky thing with alcohol is your body's going to always want to detoxify your alcohol first before it does anything else in the body. So a lot of the times when people complain of like a beer belly, it's because your body stops burning fat because it has to get this alcohol out of your system. So your liver stops breaking down fat and it focuses on all the alcohol. So if you're somebody who's a heavy drinker, yeah, typically weight gain's a side effect because until that alcohol's out of your system, your body can't do anything else. From just a moderate consumption perspective, yes, one beer once in a while. Is alcohol inflammatory?
You've wanted to start an online business, but you haven't already got a product to sell, and you're not sure where to start, then I hope this little session.
It's not going to affect your body's ability to heal or to burn fat. It's everything in moderation. I'm a big advocate for. So I wouldn't say eliminate anything.
Gotta go. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions before the hour hits? And if you guys have questions, I'm going to put my email in the chat. So if anything comes up, if you think of anything, by all means, shoot me an email, let me know. That's what I'm here for. So don't feel bad. People are like, I feel so bad asking you questions. This is what I do. So don't feel bad. Email me if anything pops into your head. If you come to the gym here and I'm not with a client, pop your head in my office. By all means, that's what I'm here for. And I'm going to send the recipes to John and I'll have him get them out to you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's very helpful.
You're welcome. All right, John, I'm going to email you the recipes in the next couple minutes. And then any other questions for me, or are you all set?
Well said, Emily.
All right, awesome. Will I see you tomorrow? With Matt being back, I know he's off. He was off today and yesterday, but will you be back in tomorrow?
I'll be seeing the neurologist tomorrow.
Okay. All right. But yeah, if you have any sort of question for me, email me. I know I see you enough a week. Come into my office if anything comes up, or if you want me to do another one of these, absolutely let me know.
I did really well, thank you.
You're so welcome. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.
All right, thank you. Thanks, John.
Hey, Tom.